So now we've had a very good explanation of the how and the why, and so now we have folks who are landing in local communities all across the country. And you can't speak to other cities and towns. You probably have some visibility in the Hancock County and other communities there in Ohio, just because of your regional side. But you've got new folks coming in. Talk about housing. Talk about what it is, not necessarily the step by step, but how are folks who are coming, how are migrants who are coming to Findlay, to find work, to find better educational opportunities for their families. How are they plugging on the housing side into the existing infrastructure that's there?
Yeah, housing is really challenging because we already had a very tight housing market. We are short thousands of units projected over the next 5 years, and at all price points and all types. So certainly individuals with lower economic mobility get priced out of markets much faster when you see an increased demand. So right now, the majority of our immigrant population are living in hotels. They're renting and they're paying, more than they would to stay in a hotel, probably for an apartment or a house. And so, we do have landlords that are willing to rent to them in some cases. But for example, I used to be a landlord and you want to be able to do a background check and a credit check. Well, someone who's new to the country, they don't have a credit score. They don't have maybe references that you really feel comfortable with, or you're not able to as easily perform those background checks. So certainly there's some hesitancy there. And it's also then putting pressure on a housing market that already had it. So right now, we are just kind of continuing to develop at the rate that we were developing, and most of those are at market rate and above housing. And so right now we're just kind of holding tight to see what the next year or so looks like. I don't think we don't have any plans to build housing specific to immigrant population. I don't think personally that that's something that really is helpful long term, but we're definitely keeping an eye on it because the last thing I want now is the last thing I want is for people to be put into dangerous situations because of the housing shortfall. But I think what we're going to start seeing is I don't think our population is going to grow much. We're just going to continue to see immigrants going to kind of other communities and finding new opportunities. And I know a good portion of immigrants that are living in neighboring communities and then coming to Findlay to work.
So, are you seeing a innovative approach from the faith-based community or the private sector to kind of come in, because you kind of hit two long well established credit and background checks, and then you hit the very next one, which is you can't do it. You can't call into wherever these folks are coming from because they're leaving for a reason, because the infrastructure wasn't there. Are you seeing are you seeing the private sector innovate? You mentioned some landlords are willing to do that, but just kind of breaking out of that old rigid framework in order to, and there's a lot of risk involved, I understand that completely, but in order to take risk on folks who are here motivated by opportunity.
Yeah, what I've heard is from some of our businesses that are hiring individuals is they are leasing a house and then having their employees be able to work there because it is someone that they can hold accountable a little bit better. So that's certainly being discussed. We're not seeing, I wouldn't say housing has been our largest struggle because it's kind of like, okay, that's stable. Let's really focus on how can we get these folks assimilated and economically empowered as quickly as possible so that then they may have opportunities to better afford another property or, do something in that kind of realm. So we've really been focused on probably three main items. And that has been English language learning classes and getting
Right.
folks to learn English as quickly as possible, education around traffic and driver safety, because individuals that do maybe have their driver's license still are not accustomed to actually following road rules, which is really important. Obviously, we want people to be safe, and in the United States, we try to enforce our roads of the rules of the road. There we go. We got it. And then the third is really healthcare. So making sure that folks are appropriately vaccinated or are educated on where they should be going for different levels of healthcare. Again, our population is primarily Haitian. They're used to just being able to show up at a hospital and get care because it's nationalized healthcare. So educating them on, hey, no, you need to go to a doctor, and for primary care visits, you need to go to urgent care before you need to go to the ER, and how to kind of navigate that system. And we've been fortunate. We have a couple of missions organizations, as well as our public health and our library have all stepped up, and been very engaged in helping educate this population, so that they're assimilated. And honestly, we haven't seen a huge drain on our resources. The largest challenge really has been that healthcare component, from a financials perspective, and then the language barrier, because that impacts kind of all aspects of life.